Most people only know the obvious manipulation tactics: guilt trips, gaslighting, and emotional pressure. But the true manipulators, they use methods so subtle, you'll never realize you're being controlled until it's too late. These are the rare tactics of the masters, the ones who can shape your decisions without ever saying a word. The world doesn't run on truth. It runs on perception. You're told that being honest, kind, and fair will bring you respect. But the reality is crueler. Fairness is a story sold to the powerless to keep them predictable. The powerful, the true players, don't play fair. They play smart. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago when he wrote The Prince. He warned rulers that virtue, mercy, and honesty were useful, but only if they served power. When Alexander the Great spared his enemies, he did it to make their armies surrender faster. When he destroyed entire cities, he did it to make others obey without question. Both mercy and cruelty were tools, not emotions. You were raised to believe life is a classroom. It's not. It's a chessboard, and most people are pawns who don't even know their pieces. The players, the manipulators, understand that control doesn't come from brute force anymore. It comes from influencing perception. They don't make you do things. They make you want to do them. Every human mind runs on predictable patterns: validation, fear of rejection, and the desperate need to belong. Manipulators don't fight you. They guide you. They feed your emotions just enough to make you feel safe while they take control. Look at history. Julius Caesar wasn't loved because of his power. He was loved because he made people feel like they were part of something divine. He didn't conquer Rome by force alone. He conquered hearts with charm and illusion. And when they crowned him dictator for life, they didn't even realize they'd surrendered willingly. Modern manipulators do the same. Advertisers make you feel incomplete, then sell you confidence in a bottle. Politicians manufacture fear, then promise to protect you from it. Toxic partners create emotional chaos, then offer themselves as the only calm. They pull invisible strings, not through aggression, but through understanding. Because control isn't about domination, it's about direction. And the greatest manipulators don't demand obedience. They inspire it. Morality is often a costume, worn by those who understand that righteousness is the perfect disguise for control. When religion, politics, or corporations preach goodness, they're not always protecting you. They're protecting order, your obedience, your compliance. History's most dangerous manipulators never looked like villains. They looked like saviors. The Inquisition burned people alive in the name of purity. Lenin promised equality, then built a hierarchy even more brutal than the one he destroyed. Each one understood the Machiavellian principle. People will forgive almost anything if you convince them it's moral. Society rewards obedience disguised as goodness. It punishes rebellion disguised as evil. So most people stay trapped, afraid of being called selfish, arrogant, or cruel, while the ruthless quietly rise above them. Here's the truth. Morality, when used blindly, becomes a leash, and manipulators use it masterfully. They convince you that being nice makes you virtuous, when in reality, it makes you vulnerable. Because those who cannot say no can never truly say yes. Emotions are the battlefield, and the side that controls emotion wins. Think about this. Who controls you most? The person who angers you, or the one who ignores you? Exactly. The one who knows your emotional rhythm holds the power. Master manipulators play this game with surgical precision. They weaponize empathy, turning your compassion into chains. They make you feel guilty for their pain, responsible for their moods, ashamed for their failures. Soon you're not living your life anymore. You're managing their emotions. In toxic relationships, this is how control thrives. The abuser alternates cruelty and kindness until your nervous system confuses fear with love. Your brain becomes addicted to the cycle, and you mistake chaos for connection. Even nations do this. During wartime, governments flood citizens with fear and patriotism simultaneously. Emotional manipulation on a mass scale. They make you feel both threatened and proud, terrified and loyal. You obey not because you're forced to, but because your emotions demand it. The most powerful manipulators don't silence you with threats. They silence you with guilt. And guilt is the most efficient prison ever built, because you lock yourself inside it. But awareness is the first crack in the illusion. When you stop reacting, when you start observing, you take back control. The Machiavellian mind doesn't fight emotion. It studies it. Instead of asking, why did they hurt me? You ask, what did they gain from hurting me? You shift from victim to analyst, from pawn to player. Emotional detachment isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. It allows you to see manipulation as a system, not a story. You stop taking things personally because you realize nothing is personal. It's all strategy. The ancient Stoics called this apatheia, freedom from disturbance. Machiavelli called it necessita, the ability to do what's required, not what's comfortable. Both mean the same thing: control your reactions, and you control the outcome. When you master observation, you become unreadable. And when you become unreadable, you become uncontrollable. You've seen the shadows now, the invisible strings that shape behavior, the moral illusions that control the weak, the emotional traps that drain strength. You've seen how society rewards obedience and punishes awareness. But understanding the game isn't enough, because knowing how manipulation works doesn't make you immune to it, not yet. To truly become untouchable, you must understand the methods of the masters, the ones who use silence as a sword, weakness as bait, and dependence as a chain. They don't play fair, they play deep. And in the next chapter, you'll see the truth behind the 5 rare manipulation tactics that even seasoned manipulators fear. The tactics that bend trust, reshape perception, and make others act against their own will, all while believing it was their idea. The deeper we go, the darker it gets. Tactic 1, the mirror of control. Most people believe trust is built through honesty. The masters know it's built through reflection. They don't show you who they are. They show you yourself. Every word they speak, every gesture they copy, is a mirror angled just right to make you feel seen, understood, even destined to meet them. And once you feel that way, you lower every defense. Psychologists call it mirroring, a subtle imitation of tone, posture, and language that triggers the brain's social bonding circuits. But in the hands of a manipulator, mirroring becomes hypnosis. Look back at Grigory Rasputin, the mystic who wrapped the Russian royal family around his finger. He listened more than he spoke, matching the Empress's cadence, reflecting her fears and her faith. She believed he understood her soul. In reality, he was constructing a psychological reflection so perfect that every decision she made began to orbit his will. You've met smaller versions of Rasputin, the colleague who just gets you. The partner who repeats your dreams and phrases until you can't tell where your thoughts end and theirs begin. They study you like a map, then redraw the borders of your identity until your emotional loyalty is theirs to command. Machiavelli would have admired the tactic. He wrote that a wise prince must appear of the people, even when he stands above them. The mirror makes the ruler beloved, and makes the ruled forget they are ruled. The trap is simple. People trust similarity. The escape is rarer. Trust behavior over reflection. When admiration feels too instantaneous, too familiar, assume the mirror is being angled toward you, not for you. Tactic 2. The gift of dependence. Control does not always arrive as a threat. Sometimes it arrives as a gift. The most dangerous manipulators don't enslave you through fear. They bind you through gratitude. They make you need them, emotionally, financially, or socially. And then they disappear just long enough for you to feel the void they've created. That's when the chain tightens. Dependence is the sweetest prison because you decorate it yourself. You tell yourself they're helping, that they care, that you couldn't have made it this far without them. But slowly, your decisions begin to revolve around their approval. Your sense of freedom becomes conditional, measured by their mood, their favor, their silence. This is not a new art. Cardinal Richelieu, the cunning French statesman of the 17th century, mastered it. He didn't threaten the nobles of France. He offered them comfort. He made them dependent on his access to the king, his council, his network. And when the nobility finally realized how much power he had accumulated, it was too late. They couldn't remove him without losing everything they relied on. Richelieu's brilliance lay in understanding a dark truth. People fear uncertainty more than they hate control. If you make yourself indispensable to someone's stability, even if you limit their growth, they will protect you instead of resisting you. Modern manipulators play the same symphony. The partner who takes care of everything while isolating you from friends. The boss who mentors you while keeping you just uncertain enough to seek their approval. The government that offers endless security while quietly stripping your autonomy. Dependence always begins with relief. Someone else handling the burdens you don't want to face. But what starts as gratitude mutates into fear of loss. And that fear becomes control. The antidote? Self-sufficiency, not in wealth or resources, but in validation. When your sense of worth no longer hinges on someone's attention, their grip dissolves. Because the manipulator's power exists only where you believe you need them. Machiavelli once said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved." But the masters of modern manipulation know something deeper. It is easiest to be depended upon. Fear can spark rebellion. Dependence breeds obedience. They cry, they confess, they tremble, not to seek help, but to seize control. Vulnerability, when performed, is power in disguise. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Sun Tzu, the oldest psychological warfare. Disarm through emotion, dominate through pity. When you see someone break down, your instinct is to protect, not to defend. That's the trap. Once you start caring, they start controlling. Charles de Talleyrand, Napoleon's minister, feigned helplessness to outlive kings. Only the weak appear strong, and only the strong appear weak, he once hinted, turning fragility into armor. Mata Hari danced her pain into power, weaponizing seduction and sorrow to enter rooms guarded by soldiers. Modern manipulators do the same. A tearful CEO, a broken influencer, masking ambition behind empathy. You lower your guard, they raise their gain. Remember, true vulnerability costs something. Performed vulnerability earns something. Pity is the easiest leash to slip around a strong man's neck. Machiavelli. So the next time someone exposes their scars too perfectly, ask yourself, are they healing or hunting? Tactic 4. The silence of authority. They do not fill the room with words. They let the room fill itself. Silence is not absence, it is pressure. When everyone else rushes to speak, the one who stays quiet becomes the measure by which others speak. Restraint turns into gravity. A withheld answer becomes a test. An unreadable face becomes a verdict. The effect is simple and brutal. People reveal themselves to the quiet one who refuses to reveal anything. Silence is a source of great strength. Lao Tzu. The strategist's silence compels confession. It converts expectation into submission. Those who fear the void will offer up information, concessions, and compromises simply to fill the silence with meaning. Look to history for practitioners. Joseph Stalin weaponized unpredictability and silence. He spoke rarely and only with weight. More dangerous was his silence. The blankness that followed a casual remark or a withdrawn invitation. People learned to interpret pauses as threats. Uncertainty became terror. Terror became obedience. The silence around Stalin turned mere rumor into an execution order. Otto von Bismarck used another variant, deliberate inscrutability. He cultivated an image of iron will and cryptic calm. Diplomats who could not read him made costly misreads. His restraint forced others into motion while he remained immovable. He made politics react to his stillness. Silence works because humans are pattern-seeking animals. When information is scant, we invent a story to fill it. The manipulator supplies nothing, and the victims supply everything. In negotiations, the one who asks fewer questions controls the frame. In relationships, the one who refrains from constant reassurance becomes an island of authority. Mystery breeds reverence. Unpredictability breeds fear. But silence is not simply a poker-faced mask. It's a lever that alters social dynamics. Scarcity of speech creates value. When words are infrequent, they are inspected like jewels. People extrapolate weight from rarity. Unpredictability amplifies compliance. If you cannot forecast a leader's reactions, you hedge by appeasing them. Blankness forces projection. People project their hopes, our fears, and ambitions onto someone unreadable, and in doing so, reveal their plans. Defense against this tactic begins with calm. Recognize that silence is pressure, not truth. When the room goes quiet, resist the urge to over-explain. Ask precise questions. Demand commitments in writing. Make silence cost the manipulator something, not by anger, but by procedure. Keep records. Remove the drama from the pause. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and to remove all doubt, Benjamin Franklin said. A proverb turned useful. Use silence as information, not as guilt. When a ladder's silence becomes a lever, respond with measured processes, deadlines, written clarifications, and parallel channels. Make the void costly to exploit. Silence can create authority. It can also create cages. The wise learn to treat silence as a symptom and not a verdict. Tactic 5. The fear of isolation. Humans are wired to belong. Remove belonging and you remove resistance. The final, most ancient lever of control is social exile. Ostracize a person's reputation, cut their access, or threaten their network, and watch compliance follow. The fear is primal. Being alone in a hostile world is survival risk. Manipulators weaponize that fear until people trade dignity for company. No man is an island, John Donne wrote, and manipulators exploit that truth. Societies have always used exile as punishment because the loss of community is often worse than the loss of wealth or freedom. In Athens, ostracism banished politicians for a decade. Exile killed influence. The threat of being cast out kept citizens obedient. Consider the medieval power of excommunication, the Church's ability to remove a soul from community life, to deny sacraments, commerce, social legitimacy. Forced kings to bend. The social sanction was more powerful than any sword because human beings feared the loss of sacred belonging. In the 20th century, McCarthyism showed how public shaming and professional blacklisting bend societies. Careers collapsed because names circulated in lists. Colleagues who feared association disowned targets. The fear of professional and social isolation led to confessions, cooperation, and silence. Conformity was purchased by social survival. Modern variants are subtler but no less lethal. Cancel culture, corporate blacklists, whispered reputational warnings, and curated social exclusion. The manipulator does not always need to shout, "You are expelled." A look, a private message, a withheld recommendation. These are scalpel-like. People anticipate exclusion and preempt it by aligning with the voice that matters. How does the tactic operate? Create dependency on networks. If someone's status, income, or relationships require the manipulator's approval, isolation is an existential threat. Control attention. Social platforms, media, and rumor amplify exile. Removing an ally from the public square is faster now than ever. Leverage moral panic. Convert dissent into deviance. If the group casts dissenters as immoral, others distance themselves to avoid contagion. Defending yourself means diversifying your social capital. Don't let one gatekeeper hold your entire reputation. Build parallel alliances, document your work, and keep a record of endorsements that can be shown when whispers begin. Maintain transferable value, skills, relationships, and a public record that resists erasure. Practical rules of resistance. Publicize your commitments. Written proof dilutes private whispers. Cultivate redundancy. Multiple mentors, references, and revenue streams blunt exile's effect. Refuse moral panic. Evaluate accusations on evidence, not emotion. Demand due process in public shaming. Prepare for scarcity. Rehearse your narrative and maintain independent channels so you aren't silenced by one platform. Isolation is the lever of last resort, and therefore the most feared. When you understand its mechanics, you can immunize your life against it. When you refuse to be alone, you refuse to be controlled. You now hold the map of 5 dark levers: mirror, dependence, performed vulnerability, silence, and isolation. Each is a different blade. Reflection that seduces, gifts that bind, tears that disarm, quiet that commands, exile that terrifies. Understanding is the first countermeasure, but understanding without transformation is only consolation. Power doesn't announce itself. It watches, learns, then moves once. With precision. You've now walked through the shadowed corridors of manipulation, seen how masters twist mirrors, craft dependence, weaponize tears, wield silence, and exile the disobedient. But knowledge of darkness is not meant to make you dark. It is meant to make you clear, to see the world as it is and not as you wish it to be. That is strength. Machiavelli weakness was never kindness. It was blindness, the inability to read motives behind smiles, the fear of saying no, the illusion that fairness protects the good. But fairness is not armor. Awareness is. Ruthlessness, when born from understanding rather than cruelty, becomes a higher form of intelligence. The true tactician does not seek to dominate everyone. He simply refuses to be dominated by illusion. He learns to see through the masks, to hear the silence beneath flattery, to feel the pressure inside pity, to recognize when help is actually a leash. The manipulator controls the unaware. The aware, however, walk freely even through deception. Walk through the world like a silent storm, patient, precise, aware. Let others play their games. You now know the rules. And in a world built on illusion, the man who sees clearly is already in control.